Hello, I'm Jack Kessler with High Plains History, and I'm joined with Jason Love from the Amarillo Fire Department. So, Jason, we're going to talk a little bit about kind of the history of the Amarillo Fire Department. I know you guys started in 1897, so talk to me a little bit about the history of the fire department, and of course, when you start a town, it's kind of important to have a fire department.
It is. People tend to like to not let their houses burn, so that's one of the first things that they kind of set up. Amarillo started as a volunteer department initially. I believe there were about 20 founding members that started that. Of course, back then vehicles were not readily available, so it was kind of a horse and buggy type deal. They had two horses that I know of that pulled their wagon. I can't tell you their names because they're not appropriate, but it's pretty funny. But yeah, so that was kind of the first fire department. They still used buckets some. However, the fire pump showed up about 4 or 5 years after that. So that really helped because they were able to actually store water and have a bigger supply and do a better job.
And so I know from what I've looked at, it was called the Amarillo Hook and Ladder Company. It was what it was called before it became the Amarillo Fire Department. Mm-hmm. So talk to me a little bit about kind of what Hook and Ladder is, not fire department. Kind of, I guess, why was there that distinction? I guess.
I think just because of the apparatus that they used, they didn't do a lot of interior operations. Their primary job was not so much the structure that was burning, but keeping everything else around it from burning. And so I think that distinction of hook and ladder came from the fact that they didn't really do the interior stuff, and they didn't want to call it a department. So I'm not sure when that switch actually came about and why they decided to change the name. I kind of like the Hook and Ladder Company. I think that'd be cool, but that's just more modern things we now do the department wise.
Right. And so I guess, talk to me a little bit about, obviously, again, going back to you guys don't use horses now, you guys don't use buckets now, but talk to me a little about, of course, going back to some of that older stuff that maybe people still kind of see from you guys when it comes to, you guys still kind of use some of the axes and stuff like that. So what's some of the things that were used then that you guys kind of still use now when it comes to the things that were, tried and true?
Mm-hmm. So things that have kind of stuck around, of course, the axes, the hand tools, things of that nature, we still very much use, even though those are kind of phasing out with the power saws and things of that nature. But we still do use the axes. We'll still use pry tools, things of that nature, like pry bars and stuff like that. The hose, you'll probably always see fire hose. It's changed. They used to use what was called a cotton jacketed hose. And so after they would use it, they would have to go and take it back to the station and wash it, clean it up. And then they would have to hang it and let it dry. Otherwise, that cotton jacket would mold and mildew. Now we're using more of a rubber jacketed hose, so we don't have to hang that stuff. So that makes it to where we can just clean the hose, put it back on the truck, and it's ready to go for the next call. Whereas that cotton jacketed hose, you had to hang it and let it dry, and so you had to put new hose back on that apparatus in order to have a supply hose that you could use. So the fire hose, while it's changed, is still their ladders. We'll always use ladders. That's kind of always been a thing for the department. And really the agent, water. That has been the agent that we use to put this stuff out. We are now adding things to our water to make it more effective, like foam. So that's kind of a change. But those things, the axes, the pry tools, the water, the hose, and the manpower, all that has pretty much stayed the same.
And so talk to me, of course, I know that, we have, 13 fire departments or 13 houses now mm-hmm. across the city. So talk to me a little bit, how is that, the fire department has grown, of course, since the first one. Talk to me a little bit about that.
Sure. So fire departments grow according to the city. So as the city grows, fire departments grow. we have a map of the city, and we draw on this map, and we try to get response times within 5 minutes to our furthest point in a district. And so that's kind of how we determine when we need new stations and where we need to put them and all of this. So as the city grows, we try to add departments. So from until about 2000 to about the year 2000, we had 10 stations. And I don't know when they went from, how that timeline of that, but I know that until about 2000, we only had 10 stations. And since then, the city outgrew us. And so we were finding holes and gaps in our response times. And so that caused us to add Station 11, which is out in the Woodlands. That was our next station. Station 12 was down on South Georgia and 58th in Georgia. So that kind of helped services that growth to the south of us. We added 13, which is kind of in the center of the city, but still about 45th. That was another gap where we had places that we couldn't quite get to in order to meet our response times. So we're still using those maps. We're still looking at areas. We still have gaps. As the city goes west, we're finding that we need to get some coverage out that direction. And then also in the hospital districts, we're looking at potentially putting 14. I believe we have land for 14. I don't know a completion date or even a start date, but we do have land for 14 over in the hospital districts. So it all kind of depends on city growth and where they grow as to when we add stations, where they go, and how many we need to add.
And of course, I know that you guys, have these kind of new state-of-the-art stations that, of course, you guys have either put in or you guys have, remodeled the other ones. So, how important is it for you guys to have those state-of-the-art, real nice-looking fire stations for you guys to, have that quicker response time for you guys to leave out of?
It's super important. And it's mainly not for the living quarters per se, but it's for our apparatus. You can imagine a horse-drawn cart is not near as tall as what a traditional fire truck is now. And as they add technology and as they add weight to the trucks, they have to beef up the suspensions, which makes our trucks taller. We have several stations right now, I think 4, that we can barely get our trucks in. I mean, they were basically houses with standard garages that we kind of went in and redid. They fit our fire trucks pretty well until about 2000, and then we started to see our trucks getting taller, bigger suspensions. And so there are a lot of our older stations that we need to redo or maybe get new stations in order to fit those apparatus as they get taller and bigger and wider than what some of our stations will actually accommodate. So it's more for the apparatus than it is for the personnel. It is the biggest reason we need to redo some of these stations.
And so talking about the fire stations, we want to talk about Central Fire Station. Some people may not know you guys kind of have some people may not know you have a museum in Central Fire Station. Mm-hmm. So talk to me a little bit about kind of this hidden museum that you guys have in Central.
So we remodeled Central. It's probably been 10 or 12 years ago that we remodeled Central. When we did that, we created a space where we could kind of have people come in if they wanted to and kind of look at some of the history of the department. We have a lot of old equipment, things that maybe we used to use that we don't use anymore. There's a really cool ladder in there. It's called a pompier ladder. It has a hook on the end of it, which is kind of where that hook and ladder came from. But it was how they would scale high-rise buildings. So they would go into a building, go on the first floor, and then they would take that ladder and they would throw it on the outside, and they would hook the next floor up, and they would climb on the outside of that building to the next floor, climb in, and then advance up. So that was kind of how they went up high-rise buildings for the longest time. We have one of those in there. We have old turnout gear. Our turnout gear's changed. We used to wear, they looked like duster coats, and like thigh-high boots that we would pull up, and that was all protection that our guys had. Now we're fully encapsulated. I mean, we have pants, coats, hoods, gloves. I mean, it's all the whole 9 yards. So you can kind of see the transition in our turnout gear, how that kind of moves into a new technical phase. We also have what we call day books. So back in the day, before computers, the officer would write down every day what calls they made, where they went, what they did, how much water they used, all of those kind of things. So all of those day books are in that museum. I think one of the probably the most unique thing in our museum is Roger Miller, the guy that performed Trailers for Sale or Rent, or what is the name of that? What's the actual name of that song? King of the Road.
Yeah,
King of the Road. Yeah. He was actually an Amarillo firefighter. Back when he was here, the music scene was really big in Amarillo, and so he was kind of playing the clubs at night, and then he would do firefighting during the day. And so we actually have his hire and retirement papers in that museum. So that's a pretty cool piece of history that a lot of people don't know about.
And so I guess how important is or why was it important for you guys to have this museum and go, let's share some of the history of AFD for the community?
It's important. When you don't know your history, you're missing out on a huge part of your identity. Those guys that worked back then and did the things that they did are the reason why we train the way that we train now. The mistakes that they made are the reason why we have safety gear that we have and why we have protocols that we have. And so when you ignore the history, you're ignoring part of your identity and how you got to where you are. So, and it's important for us to share that with the community because we want them to know this is why they do what they do. Why do you not go get cats out of trees? Well, this is why we don't get cats out of trees. We always tell people, have you ever seen a cat skeleton in a tree? No, because when they get hungry, they'll come down. So, just that history and just being able to let people see what we do as a department is important. That's a big thing for our chief. He wants the community to get involved in what we do and how we do it. And that's kind of a change. Before they were the department was kind of hid away. You go to your stations and you don't come out. You just kind of do your job and you stay in the stations and stay hidden. Now they want people to kind of get to experience what we do. That's why we have a Citizens Academy. That's why we do station tours. That's why we do public appearances, because we want the public to be a part of what we do. Because honestly, it's their money that pays for the equipment that we have. And so it's a way for us to show that, hey, we acknowledge you guys are sacrificing for us to have this good equipment, and we're taking care of it. Those fire trucks get a bath every week, religiously. And that's because it's important for us our citizens to see clean trucks. And it helps us to keep things safe and make them operate the way they need to operate.
And I know also in that museum you guys have photos of some of the fires that were fought and stuff like that. So talk to me a little bit about some of those, showing some of the ways that fires were fought maybe back in the day compared to now, and maybe some of the bigger blazes that were across Amarillo.
Okay. We have fire changes. Buildings change, so fire changes. Back in the early days, most of your buildings were wood. So furniture was made out of wood, cabinets were made out of wood, everything was wood. So your fires were not near as hot as what they were. Probably 300-400 degrees would be max temperatures in a lot of these structures. And then we started to introduce plastics, things of that nature. When we started doing that, temperature started going up. So now we're seeing temperatures of 7, 8, 9, even 1,000 degrees in some of these buildings. And even our tactics change. Back in the old days, they didn't really go into structures. Like I said, they were more of a protecting the neighboring buildings around it, to where now we've become more active. We actually want to go in and actually find the base of the fire, what we call the seat of the fire, and put water on that. So, that's a big change as to how we actually fight fires. Our equipment allows us to do that. Before, they didn't have air packs, so they couldn't go into these super smoky environments because that was toxic. Those smoke chemicals are toxic. With the innovation and the invention of the air pack, now we can actually go in. We're carrying our own air on our backs, so we can actually go into these more smoky environments and actually get to the seat of the fire and maybe save a structure as opposed to just protecting the buildings around it. Some of the big fires that we've had, I don't know if you remember MRL when it caught fire. That was a days-long event. We just had the one here on 10th and what was it? Pierce.
I believe so.
Somewhere there. That was kind of our latest, biggest fire. And a lot of those structures, because they've changed in structure, construction, they've changed in contents. It's made it more challenging for us as a department to actually put those things out. So a big fire would be, back in the early days, just a small house would be a huge fire, mainly because of manpower and equipment. Nowadays, it's really not a big deal for us to go to a structure fire. We'll send 4 trucks. We've got 16 guys, and we can usually handle a basic house with something like that. You start getting into schools, 2-story homes. Some of these homes that they're building out in like the colonies and places like that, they're bigger. They're more sealed up. And so we need more personnel. We have higher temperatures in there, so we've got to rotate guys through more often in order to get them rehabbed and rested. So just the tactics change with the bigger building and the newer buildings, the newer construction.
And what is one of your favorite pieces that you guys have out there at the museum? What's one of the things that you're like, this is really cool. Like I'm glad that we preserve this piece or have this piece out here. What's one of your favorite pieces?
Honestly, my favorite piece is we have a piece of steel from the World Trade Center from 9/11. That's honestly one of my favorite pieces, just because of the significance that it had to American history and the way that men and women would selflessly go into a place where they weren't sure they were going to come out of, but they just did it because that's what their job was, and that's how they felt about their fellow man. And then the time after that, where as a country, we kind of all came together, and that was really one of the first times that I felt like our country was united. It didn't matter if you were Republican or Democrat. It didn't really matter what your skin color was, what your social economic status was. We were all just a country. And I wish we could get back to that, because when we get back to that, that's when we really will thrive. Until then, we're just kind of surviving. So that's one of my most favorite pieces, just for the significance. As far as equipment-wise, probably the big catch net. It's actually hanging in the truck room at Central. It's not in the museum because it's too big, but it was a big net that guys would hold, and people would jump out of buildings and land in this little net thing. Kind of like you would see in the old cartoons.
Yeah, I was about to say, kind of like the cartoons where you see like the trampoline or something like that.
Exactly. So we have one of those, and that's pretty cool, because that's not something that I've ever gotten to use, nor do I want to, because it's, from what I understand, it was more dangerous for the guys catching the people than it was for the people jumping. But that's probably one of my most favorite. But I have a lot of favorites in that museum.
Now, I did see something before you got here. You guys have an old fire truck, old restored fire truck, and I saw you driving it. So that's pretty cool for you to probably be able to drive that thing and be able to. And it is absolutely gorgeous. You had it at a car show. Mm-hmm. That thing was waxed and shined and got to be gorgeous. So talk to me a little bit about that, having that, being able to take to the community and show off this fire truck.
Yeah, so that's our union truck. And that is, I like that because it shows the difference in where we were. I think that's a 1929 model truck. from 1929 to today, the difference in the trucks. It was much simpler truck. It didn't have a lot of the mechanical things in it. It had a wind-up siren. It didn't have the electronics, so the siren was a wind-up siren. It didn't have the flashy lights. They still had lanterns, and it kind of signifies to me a simpler time of life, where we didn't need all this fancy technology to go fight fire. We would just show up, put water on the hot stuff, and go home. Of course, the fires in the homes that we have dictate we need a little fancier equipment, so we have all this electronic stuff and communication equipment, and information is key. I mean, the more information we get, the better off. So we have all these electronics to help give us information, but these guys just showed up and went to work and did the best that they could with what they had. So yeah, I absolutely love having that truck out. People love getting to see it. It's the truck that we use for funerals. So one of the things in the fire service that we do is we honor the guys who have gone before us, and they've spent 20, 30 plus years of their life in the fire service. And there's no greater thrill than to ride that fire truck. I remember my first day when I got to the station and we got our first call, and just being on the truck and riding the truck, and lights and the sirens and the adrenaline rush and all of that stuff, that never really goes away. You still kind of have that little kid type mentality. But we do that in order to honor those guys, to kind of give them that one last ride, even though in body they're not there. It's just a body that's there. It's for the family. It's a way for us to say what they did and who they were as a firefighter is important to us. And so we want to honor them and give them that one last ride. And a lot of times we'll let family members ride with us because it's important to them. The fire service is not just the guys at the stations, it's our families, because they're directly impacted by what we do and the times that we're away. So it's a way for us to honor the guys that have passed on, but also those family members as well.
Yeah, and speaking of that, I know that before you go into the museum, you see the pictures of those who've lost their life in the line of duty for the fire department. So talk to me a little bit about that, about having those pictures there for people to see of those who've lost their life in the line of duty for AFD.
Yeah, so I mean, those guys are the ultimate heroes. They were men who were just men, just like us. It reminds you that every day is precious. Tomorrow is history. Yesterday is history. Tomorrow is not promised. We only have today, and it's a gift, and that's why they call it the present. And that's a cool saying. I just heard that this morning, and I like that saying because it reminds you when you pass those pictures that you have to live in the moment. Those guys, when they went to work that final time or whatever, they didn't plan on that being their last day. They had plans and they had dreams and they had aspirations, and you just never know when your time is up. And so it's a solemn reminder that what we do is dangerous. It makes us train harder because we want to go home at the end of the day. It also makes us more aware of the people around us, because I'm not just responsible for me. I'm also responsible for that guy that's next to me on that hose line, and the guys that are outside, and the families that we're serving. There's that aspect of those pictures. It also reminds me of the fact that we are just human. A lot of people see us as being heroes, superheroes, but we're just human beings. We're men just like anybody else, and we get hurt, we get sick, we can die. So we have to spend time focusing on our training, focusing on our safety, making sure that when we put that gear on, that we put it on correctly, that we don't take those shortcuts that are so easy because it's going to save me just a couple of minutes. It's all of those things that those little reminders remind us of. And so, That's why I think those pictures are important. That's why I like it being right there in the foyer. That way, when you come in first thing, that's what you see. And it's a reminder of those guys, those men and women who have gone before us, and even the ones that haven't passed away. There's still a ton of people who've made this department what it is today through their sacrifice and their willingness to give of themselves.
Yeah, you talk about training and stuff like that. I want to talk about something that people that at least I remember that's a little bit of part of AFD history, at least for somebody like me growing up over in that area of like Thompson Park, of the tower that was over there. I very much remember it was something that was always very cool to me to see that the training tower over there. Of course, it's no longer over there, so now you guys have a new training facility. And stuff like that. Talk to me a little bit about that new training facility that you guys have that's kind of, again, state-of-the-art for you guys and stuff like that. No longer the tower over there at Thompson Park, but the new state-of-the-art facility that you guys have. And talk to me a little bit about that.
I miss the tower. I was one of the last groups that actually was in that tower doing training. And my whole academy was out there. So I'm with you. I kind of miss that old tower. But yeah, this new facility, because our fires change and our fire loads change and our building configurations change, we needed a place where we could adapt to those different fire scenarios. So this new facility that we have allows us to do that. We have a place in it where we can simulate just a standard house fire, just your normal everyday 1,700 square foot house fire. We also have a place where we can do high-rise fire. So if we get, heaven forbid, the Chase Tower catches on fire, we need to train and be prepared to deal with that structure. And so we have a high-rise building that we can use. Because we have so many specialties, we have a rescue team. They do a lot of rappelling, a lot of rope rescue. So that facility has the ability to facilitate that kind of rescue. They also do confined space, so a very small area. You get somebody that gets stuck in, a drainage ditch or something like that they can't get out of. There's special things you have to do before you can go into that environment. And so we have the ability with that tower to simulate some of those conditions. And we still use some of the old stuff. We have an SCBA trailer where we will actually go in and we'll black out the guy's mask so they can't see. And we'll send them into this kind of maze type deal, and they have to crawl around and feel on air with their air packs. And we have ways that we can kind of trap them and make them work through some of those problems. And that's been around forever. So even though we have this new technology in the space, we also still use some of the old stuff because that stuff is just as valuable as some of that new stuff. And I think some of the reasoning for moving it where we did was just sheer space with our trucks getting bigger, our apparatus getting bigger. We're having more guys. When you have 20 guys, when they first started the Hook and Ladder Company, 20 guys, you can train them pretty easy in a small area. When you have 390 plus guys, you're going to need a lot more space. And so, moving it where we did gave us the room that we had. We also have a lot of propane type props where we can simulate car fires, dumpster fires, all of that stuff. But it's all plumbed with natural gas so that we can actually light those things several times and use different tactics and try different agents and things like that. And repetition. The fire service is all about repetition. You spend days learning how to pull a fire hose off the truck because we don't want to think about it. We just want to do it. And so that facility gives us the ability to do all those things over and over and over and over again at a more cost-efficient way than having to bring hay and wood and things of that nature. So it's just a little bit quicker, a little more efficient by doing it that way.
And so for people that want to go either be a part of the Citizens Academy or go to the museum and see the things that you guys have, how can they do either one of those things?
So the museum, of course, it's in a fire station. So you're more than welcome to stop by and take a look at it. Of course, if the guys aren't there, you're not going to be able to get in. But if they're there, they're more than happy to show you. You can also contact the public information office. We have a website, fire.amarillo.gov. You can go on there. We have an events tab that you can click on. You can fill out that form. It will send us an email. Tell us you'd like to schedule a visit to the museum. And we will be more than happy. If we can't get the guys at the station to do it, we'll be more than happy to come over there and kind of show you and talk about what's in there and what we do and all that good kind of stuff. The Citizens Academy, the same way. We do that every March-ish, April-ish. So in October, we'll start taking applications. People can send us emails. Really, that website is where we want people to go. That way we can kind of keep all that stuff centrally located. But yeah, just get on there and tell us, I'm interested in joining the Citizen Academy, and we'll put your name on a list. And when we get to that point, we'll start sending out emails and taking people for that Citizens Academy.
All right. Well, Jason, we appreciate you coming out.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
All right. This is Jack Hessler again for High Plains History.